Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sketching Trees, the second of our four-part series. Last night, we talked about the importance of artists seeing the scene very simply, very, very simply. And then we talked a little bit about how to do that. So tonight, we're going to take those simple shapes. We showed you how to make them from the movement to the simple two-dimensional shapes. Add the third dimension to that. Okay, and that was the lesson last night. Tonight, we're going to talk about something very important. And what we're going to talk about is actually where the art happens. And art happens at the connections and the transitions. Okay, so this is going to seem like a seemingly simple thing, but it takes some time to get it, and it's very much worth the practice because whether you ever sketch trees or not, the principles we'll be talking about hold true for every genre. Okay, so good to see everybody here. Hi, Miss Janny's made it again. Good to see you. So let's hop right over to the iPad and take a look, and then I'm hoping to be able to go through this with you 2 or 3 times tonight to show you. Again, this is a precursor to a workshop, a 3-day workshop we've got coming up at the end of April 2022. After the workshop, some of this material may find its way online in our online school and a little course. Okay, so let's jump over to the iPad. Let's see. Okay, so last night we talked about the artist sees the simplest shapes possible in order to control and design the scene. We elaborate on the shapes only after we have the design of the scene, right? The big, light, dark shapes designed on the canvas. Okay, so that's our order. And we were looking at this beautiful old growth oak out behind a studio. And the workshop's actually going to be happening on this property. And this is one of many oaks on this property and the adjacent properties that you're going to have a chance to sketch. So we want to talk about 4 things tonight, or 4 steps. The first step, making sure we got a blank layer. Is the movement, right? How we're going to move along this shape. And again, don't get confused with all the little bitty shapes that you see everywhere. What we want to talk about first is the biggest, right? What we might call the main shape. And that's definitely that right there. Okay, then after we have the movement, what we want to do is to break it down into 2-dimensional simple shapes. Okay, and we showed how this comes out of the ground. It leans this way. It heads straight up, then it's going to lean this way. Guess we could have extended that, and then this goes up and out. Okay, so those are some pretty simple shapes there, right? Just a simple box. We can all do that. We can make it long. We can make it lean one way. We can make it lean the other way. And so it tells us all the information about standing up straight, leaning left, or leaning right, but we have no information as far as going into the canvas, whether it's coming towards us or going away from us. So after we have, what's the order? We have movement first, and then we have 2D simple shapes. And then from there, we're going to go to 3-dimensional simple shapes. So in other words, we're just going to add the 3rd dimension. Okay, so rather than a square or a rectangle, right, now we have a cylinder. And so the cylinder is going to tell us if these things are going away from us or do they start coming toward us. Okay, so you see our gesture is still there, but now it's got more information. So what we're going to talk about tonight, and most of our time is going to be spent on, is how these 3-dimensional shapes connect and how we show that. Okay, and let me reiterate, art happens at the connections. Art happens at the transitions. How we handle those connections and transitions really determine the level of our artistry. Okay, so after we do 1 movement, 2 2-dimensional shapes, 3 3-dimensional shapes, the 4th thing we're going to do is connections. Okay, and at first this can seem like a lot of work and doldrum. You know, for artists, it almost seems like math sometimes. But sweat it a little bit. Do a little bit of this because it will pay off big time. I promise you it will pay off big time to understand how to express this. Okay, so first thing we want to talk about is essentially what we're doing is we're taking all these straights and we want to connect them with a curve. And the question's how to do that. Well, the outside is going to be a stretch. So that's just going to really pull over. What does that mean, a stretch? Well, here, if I bend here, this will stretch. You see the bending? You see the stretch? Now, if I bend here, this side will stretch. You see the bending and the stretch? What if I do it here? Right? There's the stretch on the outside and then the bend. Right? And we can come right towards you. Like this would be a challenge, wouldn't it? This coming right at you and showing the bend. Or what about that? Because although this looks like a straight line, it's really coming up and then down. That's what we want to show. All right. Okay, so let's get a clean slate here. And let's talk about this with just a couple pieces to simplify it. So first up, we'll do our movement. Second, we're going to do two-dimensional simple shapes. Number one was movement. And our simple shapes, 2 dimensions, will look like that. After that, we're going to do our the third step is 3-dimension simple shapes. Okay, and here we get a chance to say, are these going towards us or away from us? So let's have this first one go away from us slightly. And how are we going to show slightly? Well, the less of that circle I show, the less it's leaning back. The more I show, the more it's going to lean away from us. You guys see how that works? So your sides here will stay equal, but then the distance between the top and the bottom will increase or decrease. Okay, and so that's another way you can show the degree that it's going back. And so we don't see any of the top. And then up here, this is going to turn back and come towards us. Okay, so we're going back into space here. And we're coming forward here. So this is leaning left and going back. This is leaning right and coming forward. Okay, are we all clear on that? So now let's go to step 4, which are the connections. And what's the big deal about the connections? The connections are where the art happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change colors here. Just so that we can see. So which side is the stretch? Well, the stretch is going to happen here. And then the bend will happen here. Okay, but let's talk about how we express that bend. And if we take a look right at this corner, you notice this is going this way. And then if we look at the corner below, that's going like that. So what if at the point of the bend, the first one goes over and the second one cuts under like that? And if we stretch, we've got a bend. We've got a bend, and we're using these pieces, right, to show the direction. Because we want this one going away from us and this one coming towards us. Okay, so let's go through that one more time. Okay, so we've got our three-dimensional shapes. And if we know the direction the shape is pointing, then we know which surface we're seeing. This one is pointed away from us, and we're seeing the top surface here. This one is coming toward us, one above, so we're seeing more of the bottom of the surface on this one, right? The top is on the other side. So we want to use that and that along with the stretch on the other side to make that connection. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I want you guys to play with that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, I think we should head over to the iPad. Excuse me, we're on the iPad, into the sketchbook, and talk about sketching this and let you see it develop a little bit. How are we on time? 15 minutes. So that was a long time. There's one other thing that we're not going to be able to cover too much here, and that's a twist. Right? This is straight up and down, but if this thing was twisting around, how do we show that? Well, what happens with the twist is one side is going to the other side. And then this side is doing what? Well, it's going around the back side there. Okay, so for instance, if that tree was coming in the ground, but behind that, and how am I showing this is behind? Well, whatever dead ends, see that dead ends into that line, is behind. And we can show that a little bit more by leaving that bit of space right there. Okay, and so if on one side this is cutting, the tree's cutting in front of, what will happen on the other side? Well, the other side it's going to look like that. And that may twist like that. Okay, I know that was quick and probably not very clear, but in case you see the twist, basically if you can learn to express the bend and express the twist, you're going to be able to bring form to life. In other words, your form, you can express action with your form, right? There's not a lot of action here. And even though there's some direction and things happening here, it's still pretty sterile. But if we add the bend and the twist, now we're in business. In business. Let's see, we can't see this, Jason. I hope you can see it. Hope you can see it. All right. So let's switch over to the sketchbook. Switch to the sketchbook and see what we have. So again, I like to use a couple of things. It doesn't matter what you're using, but something a little lighter and then something a little bit darker. And so first off, we're going to do movement. Second, simple shapes. In 2-dimension. There we go. Then third, we're going to make those simple shapes three-dimensional. And then the fourth is show the connections. Okay, after you get this down, very seldom are you going to go step by step by step by step. But you'll be able to see this way and solve problems. So number one, what are we going to do? We're going to show the movement. Okay? And then for number two, the second thing we want to do is show that movement into simple shapes. And what we're doing is these shapes are going to be masses. All right? So we could express this with one rectangle going straight and a second rectangle at an angle. Okay, so that is going to be our two-dimensional shape. We've got movement on one, first step. Okay, what's the movement? Second step, what is the simple two-dimensional shape? And that's pretty simple right there, basically a box. The third step is we want to turn those boxes into three dimensions. In this case, three-dimensional cylinders. So if the top one, let's say the bottom one is going away from us, and it looks something like that. And if the top one's coming towards us, it's going to look like that. Okay. So if we start here, we're going away from us. And then as we turn, we're coming more towards us. All right? So not only are we just going straight, leaning left, or leaning right, we're also going into the page or coming out of the page. And that's three dimensions. Okay, so let's take a look at, I'm going to blow this up just a little bit. This is our top. And then our bottom. Okay, and so if we wanted to see this as a single piece, if we start here at the pinch, we want to show one. And I want you to notice too that when I do this, I don't show the whole thing. Right? When we're doing these things, what we're doing is we're learning to think about it, to see it in a particular way, to see it in a way that helps us solve particular problems. Okay, there is no matching here. This is art. This isn't copying. So then with the simple suggestion, a simple suggestion and then it would stretch like that. Can you see the stretch and the bend and how these things come alive? And we don't have time tonight, but then when you add light and shade to this, this is going to tell you how to light and how to make the light and shadow on that, the values. But out of all of this, the information you need to give the viewer is right here. And what happens with people if they don't know how to show that, they tend to will obscure this area. Well, that's where all your information is going to be. That's what you're trying to show the viewer, right? So this would be an area you wouldn't want to obscure, but you would want to highlight. Okay? All right, so I know that was fast. And what do we got? We got a few minutes on here. So let's see if I just can't mess around for a minute and show you what this might look like. So what was it happening? It was coming out of the ground. It was going away from us, coming back up, and then a little jet. Okay, so let's do the simple. Okay. So we've got a bend here, and that's going to be going up and around. This is going to go basically straight across. And then here is going to be the stretch. Tie that into the ground, and then we've got a bend up here. This is going away from us. And then this is coming back towards us. I hope I did this. Surely I showed that to you right. And so that's going to be opposite. Right? Because if it's coming towards us, the top of it would look like that, and the bottom would be there. If it's going away from us, it's going to look like that. Okay, so we've got those things represented. And again, so this would parallel that. And now this one is doing the same thing, just at a greater angle. So those are the same. Okay, and then the other side is going to be a stretch. Okay, can you see how we can get some life into these things? And then could you imagine, then there's another cylinder or hollow or limb coming off of here. And going that way. And what if that's going away from us? Then that would be away. And then let's have it turn back up. Nope, that wouldn't happen because that would be the stretch. So you see these problems? So if this is coming in here, we can't, because the bend is going to be on the closed angle, right? And the stretch will be on the more open angle. Okay, so let's try that again. Let's come out here. Let's go up, and then let's go more extreme. Then that would be the stretch. And that would be the bend. Okay, guys, well, that looks like our time tonight. I know it goes so fast. It goes so fast. But hopefully you found that helpful. So what we're going to be looking for, the first thing we look for is simple shapes. How simple can we make this? Okay, then we got some simple two-dimensional shapes. What's the movement we're going through? What's the gesture? What's the action? And then on top of that action, just solve it for simple two-dimensional shapes. Then make those two-dimensional shapes into three-dimensional shapes. And those three third dimension lines, the lines over those shapes, will show you the directions of the lines of the bends. Right? So if you remember bend and stretch, and practice that. And then maybe next time we'll have a little more time for the twist. But if you'll learn the bend and the twist, you have just about every tool you need. It sounds like it's super, super simple, and it is. But for it to be simple, you have to master these two things, the bend and the twist. Okay, and that's what we'll be doing with sketching trees. So this is it for Sketch Club this week. This is the second of the 4-part series. The last 2 parts will be next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday as well. And we're going to go over bringing these things to life on the 3rd installment. And the 4th installment, we're going to talk really about the process. And so on the 4th one, we'll be just sketching, hopefully at least 2 or 3 of them. But I want to go through the process and make sure everybody gets that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for watching, tuning in. We appreciate it. If you haven't liked this video and subscribed to the channel, we would appreciate that. And Cindy's usually pretty good. If it's not up already, in the next day or 2, she'll have links to everything you need. And then if the online course does get produced, we'll have links to that as well. All right, so I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.